There, amongst the glowing images of chili cheese dogs and Route 44s, was a small speaker. And from that speaker, a scratchy, electronically projected voice said, "Welcome to Sonic, may I take your order?" For which I replied, "Yes, I was wondering if you could tell me what you think art is." Excuse me? Yes, I was wondering if you had some time to talk to me about art. One moment, please. So I waited. And when she returned to the speaker, we had a 5-minute conversation about art. And we also discussed her experiences of being a child and making small clay figurines. As I was driving away, there was multiple Sonic employees smashed against the window, waving, trying to see who is this guy asking these questions. This was 4 years into my fine arts degree, and I suddenly found myself frustrated with my own making. I had been taking things apart since I was 5 years old and creating new things shortly thereafter, but for some reason, at this point in time, I couldn't just make for the sheer joy of it. Other members of the academic community, they seemed to understand their purpose. They understood a little bit better about why or what they were doing there, whereas I quite didn't understand mine. I was searching for something. So I took to the road with my camera, and I spoke to 6 fast food restaurants about art, and all but one talked to me. As the night progressed, the complexity of my questions increased, and by the end, I was asking questions like, do you think that a snow shovel could be art? And the Whataburger attendant, and through that same scratchy speaker, said, well, it depends on the context. It just blew me away. It just blew me away. I was in the middle, like I said, I was in the middle of my studies, and I was trying to figure out why. What connected me to the rest of the academics? And so I conducted some more traditional research at this time. I looked closely at the research of researchers, physicists, other artists, scientists, looking closely at the processes that they engage themselves in. I also looked closely at the writings that they wrote on in regards to how they felt about what they were doing and why they did what they were doing, because I could actually understand that part of their research. And what became clear to me is that they all shared a very similar process. First, they all dreamt. They had ideas that through some type of process became real and became something that could be shared. And I also discovered that why they did what they did was the same as the artist. The sheer joy of discovery. They didn't do it for money. I recently attended a conference where a representative from the United Nations spoke to the fact that the UN is not simply looking at just the GDP, gross domestic product of nations, when determining prosperity. They're also looking at trying to create a happiness index. A happiness index. Now, I don't know about you, but for myself, I'm my most happiest and my most productive when I'm given some time and some space and some freedom to turn my ideas into reality. And I have found that to be true for my students as well, as you can see from their work. When I was in my early 20s, I was driving on a lonely 2-lane road, and I found a tortoise directly in the middle of the road as I was driving by. I pulled my truck over. I went to help my at-risk friend. I picked him up, moved him to the side of the road. I felt pretty good about myself for helping the poor guy, and drove off. On the way back, I found that tortoise exactly in the middle of the road again. I was frustrated. I came out of my truck and I was like, what is going on here? So I picked him up, and as I picked him up, I realized that I had taken this poor guy and returned him to the same side of the road from which it had come. I know of a way to ensure that absolutely no child is left behind. Like that tortoise, we meet our kids where they are at. And instead of trying to get them where we think they need to be, we help them get where they're supposed to go. We listen to them. We give them an opportunity to talk about their dreams, about their fears, and other thoughts. But first, we must also listen to ourselves. We have to remember, sometimes as adults, we have to remind ourselves what it's like to dream. And sometimes, before we can dream, we need to reawaken ourselves. Too often, education is so caught up in getting our students to meet the short-term goals in terms of benchmarks that we forget to help them develop the mindsets necessary in turning their ideas, their dreams, into reality. We need to remember also, like I said, what that means to us. Don't wait for some crazy artist to come to your work asking about art and reminding you what used to make you happy as a child. Remember now what that was. Remember to dream and to research and to rethink what the future of education can look like. Thank you so much.